Is it working? Huh. Oh, yeah. Glasses. Hey everyone, Mr. Kevin here, Humboldtcraftworks. Today we're going to go over how not to have dry mouth. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Today we're going to talk about how to figure out how much wood you need, laying out wood, and once you get a pile of wood, what do you do after that? What would you do? It's kind of a wood problem, and I'll try to help you figure it out. So the project I'm working on now required 40 board feet of lumber. That's rough, raw lumber, 40 board feet of walnut. Now, let me get you a piece. Okay. So the walnut, when you get it, doesn't look all pretty and smooth like this. It usually looks like this. Unless you go to a lumber yard that has just already pre-milled your stuff up and doesn't give you a chance to make it flat and square and pretty. So the biggest problem with lumber is it's a raw material. Hold on, I gotta hold myself up. Sorry, it's a raw material. It's a raw material. It grows, it does crazy things. Some trees should not be milled up for furniture or cabinets or anything because it's terrible. Well, here's the pile of wood I have. I already picked out the toe kick. The toe kick wood's usually, I hate to say it, but it's the ugliest. And then the next thing you want to do is figure out the different kind of grains. All right, so number one, a little blonde. Number two, it's okay. Number three, it's kind of a plain Jane, kind of mellow. So number two and number four look like they would go well together. So except for being not straight lined, that kind of crazy grain would kind of work together. And then we have this here one. These two would definitely work, 4 and 5. Number 6 is kind of plain, number 7 is kind of plain. So 6 and 7 would go good together. Things you got to watch out for, checks on the end, how far up they go. So this is the first thing, see, checks on the end. Everything's usually got checks on the end. You usually take these and you cut off the last 4 inches. All right, so now you've seen all the wood I got to work with. Now, normally wood will have a little bit of timber bind in it. And timber bind is when you cut it, it'll start doing crazy things like this. See that gap? So you'll start cutting it and it'll start pinching onto your blade. So pinchy. Or it'll do the opposite. It'll climb up and out, or it'll open really wide. So, but you've already paid for it and you've already started cutting into it. What do? Well, you curse a lot. I digress. So cut your stuff fat. So for a 4-inch toe kick, I cut this at 4 1/4. And when I did, I got this. See how crooked that thing is? You see that? It ain't no bueno flat. This piece was completely flat. Flat on the joiner, face jointed it flat. And when I was done, I got Captain Crooked. A little bowade. Bowade, it's a French term for bowed. Sheesh. Anyway, so I am going to proceed to mill out parts. It's very important to learn your math. It's very important to learn your math. Math is your friend. You need to know it. So you have your cut list. And I usually just kind of wing this. When I start, I just look at the job and I figure out rough 1.5 inch trim, doors are this big, face frames have this much wood in them. You already know how high the cabinet is. You got 4-inch toe kicks. You just add all that wood up, divide it by 144, and that'll give you roughly your board footage. And then you add maybe 10-20%. Let's say you have a 17 by 24-inch door, slab door, because that's what these doors are that I'm making. You just take 17 and then you times it by 24 and however many doors. So I got 4 of those. And then you get the number, boink, and then you divide that number, whatever it is. Here, I'll do it. The magic calculator. So 17 times 24 equals 408. See that? Okay. So we times that by 4 times 4 equals, what does it say, 1632? 1632, that's right. All right, so once you have that, you divide that number by 144. 11.333333. That's how many board feet you need. So I always just round up a little because you're gonna have things like this happen, tweakiness. So instead of buying 11.3333, I'll just buy 15 board feet. It's actually round up. So if it says 11, I go 15. If it says 22, I go 25. If it says 12, I do 15. It's just, whatever. I don't ever round down. Rounding down's bad because then you gotta go back and get more. That's just silly. Hey everybody, remember what we talked about earlier about laying out your wood? This kind of wood, not your wood. Don't be silly. You can cut that thing off, you know, there's sharp objects around here. When you buy it all at the store, you try to match the grain as best you can, match the color as best you can. You know, and check the boards to make sure they're not totally crooked and bowed. Once you get it home, and what I do is I lay out piles of wood, and I showed you the walnut. There was just piles of walnut, right? There was like 7 boards of walnut. I labeled all of them. What I forgot to film, because I'm an idiot, is how I go about marking stuff to know what I have. So I get my cut list, and the biggest pieces first, because you want to use the biggest boards. So if you have a 10-inch wide board and you need a 9-inch wide piece, use the 10-inch board for the 9-inch wide piece, if at all possible. So you get your biggest board, you start with your biggest board from your biggest piece, and you work your way down. If you have doors, you the 2 styles together, so if they're 2 inches, you make it 4.5 or even 5, because when you cut the wood, if it starts to move and do all weird things, which happens all the time, you don't want to be short. If you have a door with 2-inch stiles on it and you rip it to 2 inches and you join it and it's warped or crooked or anything like that, and you're done. You might as well work your way in. It might take a little bit longer, a couple more cuts. You'll thank me in the long run. Next, if you have 6-inch pieces that you need for like a drawer front or something like that, if there's a series of drawer fronts, you would take and mark on here. Okay, got this thing, there's 6 inches. So this is 6 inches here. You're gonna cut it like at 6.5. If there's a bank of drawer fronts, drawer fronts that are solid, just use the whole piece as far as you can go. So if you have a 10-foot board and you can get a 6-inch piece out of a 10-foot board, just lay them all up, mark them A, you know, here's another one B, here's another one C, and then by 6 inches wide, and then you rip it out. Okay, if you have doors below it, which you normally will, use this piece here for the top rail. Okay, so you have your top rail, and then what happens is you take your top rail, your drawer fronts, and your top rail. Okay, this is 6. This is, let's say, 2, and these 2 grains will match also. So this line here will be like this. Ugh. It's heavy stuff. Drawer fronts, top rail. It'll look way cooler when you're all done. I know, it's getting artsy-fartsy, but when you look at the cabinet when it's done that way, you'll be like, wow, that looks cool. And you won't know why, but all the grain will kind of flow together and match. The rails will all be together and match. And the same way the panels. If you could book match your panels and get them in series of panels, it'll look better. And remember, flames always go up. So to get back to what I originally talked about 15 minutes ago, so you take your biggest pieces and you work your way down to the smallest pieces, because the smallest pieces you're not really going to see. 1-inch bottom rail for a face frame. You know, the biggest pieces you're going to have are like toe kicks if they're 4 inches, your raised panels, your drawer fronts, and then everything else is, you know, 2-3 inches. Remember, your toe kick is the ugliest wood you have, because nobody's going to know it when it's on the floor. Nicer wood goes up, ugly wood goes down. Just the way it is. Flames going up. It's a good thing. Once you got it laid out, if you can cross-cut pieces to make them smaller and easier to manage on the joiner, you know, the smaller the piece is, the easier it is to go over the joiner and make it flat. Not too small, because if you get it too small, then you go to stick it in the joiner, it'll fly back and hit you and take off your finger, and that would suck. Don't do that. So remember, whatever I just said, blah, blah, blah. On top of all that, and then blah, 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 blah. Grain match your pieces, lay them out before you start milling to make sure you have enough of what you need. I hope some of that was understandable. I've been rambling for a long time. I gotta get to work. All right, we'll see you. Achoo! Oh, you're still here? Ah, I thought you would have left. Alrighty, bye.